I think after watching this week's episode of Power, it's safe to say that, like Holly, we all want Angela Valdez to die. Let's get it started, people. What's up, everybody? This is your girl, Miss Sophia the Diva, and I am here once again to talk about our favorite show on Stars, Power. We are now in Season 4, Episode 3, The Kind of Man You Are. What kind of man is Jamie or James St. Patrick? Or is it Ghost? Who knows? But some people sure do seem to know who he is and the kind of man he is, even his own attorney. So when we open up this episode, some new guy, Terry Silva, is going to be sitting second chair to Proctor in defending James St. Patrick. Okay, great. He's very cocky. He's a black dude. He obviously knows his stuff. His ratings as far as getting people off and out of capital cases and avoiding the needle is second to none. So we gonna go with him. But I don't particularly care for this attorney. The fact is this. When you are representing a client and that client is paying you, whether he's guilty or innocent, that doesn't matter. You are to zealously represent your client, and you are not in any form or fashion to make him feel like he can't trust you. And if I was James, I wouldn't trust dude, because he is doing everything he can. Let him know, well, you know, I was educated. I had parents that went to school, but your character is in question because you're just a dope dealer. I know what kind of man you are. And James is like, well, some choices weren't given to me. And I found that interesting because I remember when I clerked for the public defender's office, that was often my argument when I was able to talk to whomever the assistant district attorney was that was working that particular docket we were on, is that you got to consider the fact that not everyone was given the same opportunities we were given. That very well could be us sitting in the defendant's chair right now trying to figure out, how did I get here? And let's be real, a lot of the clients I represented were people of color who often were just seen in a certain neighborhood and minding their own business, and were often collared. So sometimes we're just a victim of circumstances. Yes, the choices we make may not be the best choices, but that doesn't necessarily make us bad people. And therefore, who are you to judge Mr. Terry Silva what kind of man Mr. James St. Patrick is? I like the fact that Proctor is determined to zealously represent him. Part of it's out of fear because Tommy continues to threaten him, but yet supply his ex-wife with cocaine. Terry learns about Proctor's affiliation with both Tommy and James, and he says that that's a conflict. Quite frankly, it kind of is, but they're not being represented in the same manner. Unless the government was going for the RICO, then yeah, there might be a conflict. But I tell you who does have a conflict. Why the hell is Angela Valdez still involved in this case? Why? Because under the rules of professional responsibility, the model rules, she has no business being part of that, because number one, the very people that they are prosecuting is the very people that she has a relationship with. Not only that, there is a very strong possibility that she could be called to testify as a witness. Like, in what dimension does this work? Okay, this is the one part of the show that I can say is not steeped in reality. Also, we saw that Greg is finally being laid to rest. I was like, how long has his body been out? What passage of time are we in? Is it like 2 weeks after he been dead? How long this man been dead? And I'm all for appearances, but really, Sandoval, you had to show up at the church and stand by the daggone coffin. Was this bring you comfort to know that he's truly dead? Scumbag. Sandoval still sitting around there looking guilty. Every time something comes up, he looks guilty. That dude Bailey, I could never remember his name, but remember last season, Greg would go see this blonde-haired dude, and they would sit down and talk. So he has evidence that could exonerate Greg as being the mole. However, he also has it wrong. He believes that Angela is the mold. And he even goes and tells her, look, you need to go ahead and free yourself of all this. Just cleanse yourself, girl. So that way James can still get the needle. We can get Tommy. And Greg can get some colors on and some stripes on his grave. I was like, okay, good luck with that. At one point, we see Sandoval goes to follow Bailey to this bar. And wants to talk to him, and dude is like, that's neither here nor there. But when we see them disappear, the camera pans out, we see he's actually investigating Sandoval to figure out what's up with him. So I have a feeling that he knows that Sandoval might be dirty and that he's actually the mole. Maybe he's telling him that Angela's the mole to tip him off the scent. I don't know. All I know, Mr. Bailey, is you better watch your front. Dude, watch your back, because Sandoval has no problem killing anybody to protect himself. He's like a cat that's been caught in the corner. He will claw his way out or shoot his way out. Stay safe, my friend. Oh, so also in the beginning scenes, we see that the men in black are snatching off every person they can think of that's a known associate of Ghost and Tommy Egan's. They pick up Julio, they pick up Dre, they pick up, oh my God, they pick up Keisha, who has said to Tommy time and time again, she don't want anything to be involved. She does not want to be involved with this hot mess they got going on. And so it just so happens that Dre sees Julio, Julio sees Dre, and we see later on in this episode that Dre tries to use Julio being snatched up as a way to get Tommy on his side. Because he's mad at Julio because Julio came in the club this episode and told him, say man, with all this heat, y'all need to stop running drugs through the club. We need to shut it down. And so he is not agreeable to that. He tells Tommy, yo, they kept Julio longer than me. And Tommy was like, okay. Tommy's on uncle duty trying to get these kids information. Tariq telling him, my daddy lied. And Tommy like, yeah, I agree. He don't always tell the truth, but I know he ain't lying about this. I don't like Tariq. I don't care if you found out your parents allegedly lied to you. You still got a good life. You still got a mama that cares about you. You should be grateful for that. You need to shut the hell up and stop hanging around with a grown-ass man that's pimping you out to do his dirty work. Because in one scene, I was very excited to see that Tariq was hanging out with kids his age or teen his age. But come to find out, really, he was just setting dudes up so his house could get robbed. And I truly believe that there's a camera there in some of those photos, which I'm like, how is Kanan just walking the streets of I think somebody said it on Twitter today, like, how is Kanan just walking the streets of New York and ain't nobody noticed that he's out? Come on now, like he been resurrected. There's a lot of out-of-court discussions with Judge Tapper. I like Judge Tapper. He comes hard and he's fair. At one point, we see Sykes trying to get Judge Tapper, let him know I have an illegal wiretap, and it could be evidence that I can use that can lead to evidence that will take the taint off. Because let's be real, if you've ever been in criminal prosecutions, you've heard the term fruit of the poisonous tree. That means that if you didn't have probable cause, or if you didn't have the right authority to obtain this evidence, guess what? We can't use it in court. You better find some way to remove the taint. But Judge Tapper told him, there ain't no way in hell I'm going to let you let that in. And so he was like, well, I'm just going to fuck off. Sykes is just that goofy white dude. I'm just going to fuck off for now. He goes, yeah, I think you better fuck off. I was like, this is too damn much for me. Mobster Tony got bold with it. He let James St. Patrick know, I know that you're also Ghost, and I know you and Tommy Egan be running drugs. Here's my address. I need for you to send $20,000 every week. And he was like, how do you know I'm Ghost? Don't worry about it. But I will go to that chink prosecutor and let him know that you Ghost. The hell you gonna do? So he does get Proctor to handle that up for him. During this trial prep with Terry and Proctor, we learned that Ghost, or James rather, we're going to continue to call him James. I'm going to get information with what the attorneys want for him. James says when he was looking at the evidence pictures, he says, well, that phone wasn't there at first. I don't know how it got there, but if you ask me, it was planted. He also tells him about this traffic stop. The traffic stop is going to be key to him getting free, I believe, amongst other things. They're like, well, how did your DNA get under Greg Knox's nails? Well, it turns out during the traffic stop, remember, there was some bodily contact on the part of Greg. He roughed Ghost up, so that explains it. So Terry's firm is going to do as much as they can to get this out and figure out, can we prove? Because Greg did that traffic stop off the books. And Angela knew he had because Jamie had told her. But she doesn't say anything about it. But John, I think she told John about it, and he didn't think it was a big deal because who's to say that Ghost isn't lying and who's to say that Greg wasn't lying because they're both dirty. So what ends up happening, end up having an evidentiary hearing to get that particular form of evidence tossed. Terry's firm comes through, his investigators come through, they find the public video on the day and time in which Angela had told John and Ghost had told Proctor. So they end up getting that kicked out. And so Judge Tapper had to call Angela to the bench and be like, yo, did you know about this? And she was like, yeah, I knew. I was like, why is she even part of the case? See, Angela is going to be collateral damage. They trying to say that Ghost kids are just collateral damage because Angela's like, I don't want these kids to end up in the system because John is just all about winning against Proctor. So I wonder how he feels about the black guy being in there now. I don't know how he feels about that because dude has a record too of winning against him too probably. He is not looking too clean and too good. But either way, we got to win. The only other thing we need to get kicked out next to get rid of everything else, because actually the evidence ended up getting withdrawn because Proctor was like, let me tell you something. Either you withdraw it or we bring it up in court. What you want to do? Tapper was like, I'll split the baby. I'll allow the evidence in and I will allow Proctor to let the jury know how it was obtained. So to me, John got so overzealous and he became incompetent because like every lead could lead to something else. Don't be stupid. Like, I don't believe it. You can't just state you don't believe it. This is chess, not checkers, John. Obviously, you playing checkers. I don't know, but you need to bring your A game. But you're not going to win anyways. I did notice when they were interviewing Lakeisha, I was like, I kind of have a feeling that they're trying to break spousal privilege. I don't know what the rules are in New York about spouses, but to me, as long as you're still married, it shouldn't matter. Because they're trying to say at the time, Angela was really trying to get to Lakeisha, and she was like, well, when did they separate? When did he come back? And Keisha was like, you know all of this. And she was like, yeah, but he was sleeping on the sofa. Honey, do you know how many relationships have fights and fallouts and the spouses end up sleeping on the sofa? I mean, I'm just asking. I'm asking for a friend. So, but I mean, it could work. I don't know what the rules are for breaking spousal privilege. I think it's actually been modified since I was in law school. I don't know. I love how Angela breezed her way in there with Charlie Murphy to make an offer that she really don't have a leg to stand on to make such offers. Terry thinks she does, but I'm like, she doesn't because technically she's not part of the trial team. They just kind of have her setting off to the side like the broccoli bitch she is. Side hoe. But I know what it is. She feels guilty because she knows those kids, either way, they're going to try to turn Tasha and the kids going to end up without a mom and daddy. Daddy dead. Mama in jail for a time. Hopefully, maybe Auntie Lakeisha can take care of the kids. Okay, also we see that the feds are really, really looking out for Tommy, but Tommy stays about 10 steps ahead of him. They had a poker night at the warehouse and a truck was seen leaving the warehouse. Turns out the truck actually had Tommy in it, so they get ready to move product. The guy that was watching told me, no matter what, we're going to keep our eyes out for Egan. And I'm like, y'all didn't think that maybe he might be in the back of the van? You feds come off pretty stupid. My concern and question was when I saw them trunks and when he touched Julio, he said, you never know who you can trust. Isn't that right, Julio? And Julio kind of had this worried look on his face. So my theory is that Julio might not make it. Please don't kill my boo. He's so cute, but I love Julio. He's so sexy. Y'all can have Dre though. And then another person on Twitter said it's probably going to be Dre. Next week in the previews, we see a lot is going on. Poor Lorena though, this episode, real quick, I just want to touch the babies. Lord, poor Lorena. She is having such a hard time. And then some paparazzi and caught her outside, and he had took a picture talking about bad parenting, and Charlie Murphy just had shit. I said, help, Lord. But next week, I am wondering, will Sandoval come clean? Will Bailey live to tell the truth that he knows about what's really going on with this corrupt case? I'm just really curious because we seen one scene in the episode that he's like, Your Honor, may I approach the bench? I'm like, what the hell are you going to approach the bench for? But I think that's all the highlights of the show for this episode. I kind of just wanted to do a highlight of some of the big things. There's a lot of other little things that were going on in the background. I'm just wondering at what point are we going to find out about Kanan. But be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel. I definitely will be reviewing Power every week. So thank you all who have been watching and riding with the Diva. Be sure to share this. And I've been Miss Sophia the Diva, and you've been all that.